It's the one only Despotic, bringing you guys another gameplay commentary. This is Elder Scrolls Online, and this is my kind of take or review of the Horn of the Reach DLC for Elder Scrolls Online by ZeniMax Online Studios. And so I'll just briefly talk a bit about PvE. PvE is still broken. Stamina has no place in PvE, and to those players who counter with, well, yes, they do. They have massive amount of DPS. Damage per second is through the charts. Players are not focused on solely damage per second and not focused solely on DPS. They're focused on the combination of DPS and survivability, and that's not something that's evident when it comes to stamina. And I find it kind of ironic that you'll see a lot of PvE players talk as if PvP is so unbalanced and it creates so many issues for PvE, when in fact they're okay with the status quo, right? They're okay with the fact that, did I say fact already? They're okay with the way PvE is now, and it's heavily dominated by Magicka, and they won't say anything about it because that's what they like. There's no, like, players aren't attempting to have a challenge. They're no longer looking for that. They're looking for times, and they're looking for, you know, just to pat themselves in the back and say, we did a great job zoning that boss. And it's fine, you know, it's fine. And that's mainly what I wanted to talk about, PvE. And so those players are like, well, you didn't talk about what are the best sets and so on and so forth. This is not the channel for that. If you want, you can go to, there are lots of channels that do that put out that content. This is not the place. I post pretty much whatever it is I want to post, and I give the progression of how I am in terms of PvP, and also dabble somewhat in PvE. And so that's what you'll get. You'll get gameplay, you'll get in-depth discussions about whatever build that I'm playing. And if you do have like an individual or specific question you leave in the comment section, I will answer it. It doesn't mean I don't have the info about PvP or PvE in terms of what's the best class to use. I don't focus on that. I focus on your overall skill and how that kind of progresses through the different changes in ESO. That's what I offer. So let's talk about PvP. So currently PvP is infested with Magicka, and you saw that kind of tip towards the balance, well, the shift towards Magicka mid to late Morrowind, and you saw a lot of players going to Magicka because it just offers so much utility in group play, and you know, compared to stamina, right? You can have a Magicka Sorc and a Magicka Templar who might not be the best players, but they can hold their own because their synergy is really good. There's just so much utility between the two classes that they kind of complement each other. You can put any other Magicka class there as well, and they will synergize well. Now, if you kind of apply that same concept to two stamina builds, and I'll choose a Warden, not even a Warden. Let's choose a Nightblade, right? A Nightblade and a Stamina Templar. Stam Nightblade, Stam Templar. If those players aren't above average and they're out there fighting, the synergy and the utility will not be there, right? There's no way to kind of help the other person out. Even though the Nightblade has mass hysteria, that's pretty much the only thing that synergizes well with other stamina. You can't use Vigor because both of them are using Vigor. There's nothing that really allows stamina to synergize with an exception of the burst ultimates. But that's pretty much it. But let's continue. So you're seeing these players who have really good synergy just inherent in the class, in the Magic class. So they don't have to be good players. They don't have to be exceptional players. And they're allowed to feel, and rightly so, that they're actually doing something in the game, right? Players don't want to play a game and feel as if they're constantly getting dropped and there's no place for them. They don't want that to happen, and the developers don't want that to happen either. So that's why they will more go towards the point where if you're a good player, you have this diminished return. Let me pause this. If you're a good player, you have this diminished return whereby, the more and more the game progresses, the more and more you feel as if you're being underpowered, right? You as if the developers are deliberately trying to allow new players to come into the game and have some kind of semblance of being competitive or just feeling as if they've done something. And I think that's what the developers are trying to do, right? They're trying to allow players to do what the game originally set out to do, which is a massive group-based game, and still allow you to play as you want. And look, can you fault ZeniMax and the developers for doing what they see the game as and what the game was set out to be? You can't fault them, and that's what it is. So currently, just remember, when this game originally came out, Stamina was dominant. Not Stamina, Magicka was dominant. Magicka DK, and they now want to kind of get back to where it was, I think. And so that's what they're doing. And we just have to kind of deal with it, and it's cyclical, because I remember the days when Stamina was really good. You saw a lot of players playing Stamina. The only difference was if you ran into players playing Stamina and you were good in terms of your skills, then you would just run through those players. But it's different now. With Magicka, there's that element of, hey, you can pop a shield, you can pop a ward, you can cast a heal, and you can get right back into the fight. You can reset. Magicka allows you to reset the fight. That's why a lot of players tend to hate Stamina Nightblade, because Stamina can reset fights, and that's probably that class and Stamina Sork that kind of reset it because of Bolt Escape and Cloak for Nightblades. But Magicka just has the ability to reset fights. And look, I'm not saying it's easier to play Magicka. I don't think so. I think Magicka, if you really want to be a top tier Magicka player, you have to be really good at timing, really good at burst, really good at being passive and choosing the right time to kind of counter. So by default, you're inherently passive, but Stamina, they're just aggressive, and they can really push, and they can be that player, and that's why a lot of good players gravitate towards that, because you're not being defensive a majority of the times. You tend to be aggressive, and so that's currently the way ESO is with the Horn of the Reach. It's mainly infested, and I say infested because that's probably the best term to kind of describe ESO currently. Magicka is really dominant. They pretty much did away with all of the Stamina procs and left the Magicka procs alone. Scoria, Grafdar, like all of those things are still there, and they're hitting really hard. And in the past, they wouldn't hit for more than 4.5K. Now I'm getting hit 6, 7. I have the death like recap, and but it's fine, man. I think the way ZeniMax operates, what they'll do is they'll just have this knee-jerk reaction, and they'll completely nerf Magicka, and Magicka players will wonder why, and some of it has to do with just the community as a whole. Like, they would see that, and instead of kind of easing up and being principled and having some form of, like, you know, understanding that, hey, if you abuse this system, ZeniMax will shut it down. No, they would rather just be good for a moment in time than be great through progression, through skill. And that's what will ultimately happen. They will do something that will severely impact Magicka, and players will wonder why that happened. And then, you know what will happen? The same thing that Magicka players are saying now, like Solo Assault is working as intended, and Solo Assault can't really kill a good player, and and they always view it from the standpoint of an individual duel. They never view it from a standpoint of like groups or destruction. Oh, has been nerfed and the damage is reduced, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Like, they never view it from a standpoint of like group play, right? And if they did that, then ZeniMax won't overreact, which the way I think they'll overreact, and you only have yourself to blame. And it's the same thing with Nightblades. Nightblades abused proc sets, and look what happened to them. Sorks abused their shields and mines and Magicka Det, and look what happened to it. Templars abused Breath of Life, and look what's happening. And it just like I said, it's cyclical. So that's the state of it. And look, we just have to deal with it and just keep working on your skill and your progression. And hopefully you'll get to a point where regardless of the patch, you know, you'll be excuse me, you'll be good, because you cannot quantify skill. You can only view it from a standpoint of you will constantly improve and become better if you focus on skill and not build and what's the best setup to use at the current moment. And that's my advice to you. Anyway, it's the one only, the Sputic. Deuces.